Next, welcome to the stage, Paul Brunoforte! Hey!
For the past 20 years, the government has been looking for WMDs. They've spent billions of dollars looking for WMDs, and they still haven't found any. There were WMDs in my apartment when I was growing up, and nobody seemed to care. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, the WMDs I'm referring to are the weapons of mom's discipline. Those implements of torture that moms used to use to keep the kids in line. And you have to understand, it was a different time back then. The book on parenting, very short, one line. Spare the rod and spoil the child. The parents would come up and say, "We love you. That's why we beat you." Who remembers this? "This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you." I never believed that. But you know, moms, they're little, they have small hands, they need weapons. And in the Italian household, one of the more popular weapons was the wooden spoon. Oh yes, the wooden spoon. And my mom could wield the wooden spoon like the conductor of the New York Philharmonic wields his baton. And it would go something like this. "Get away from there. Dun, 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 dun. Stop that. Dun, 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 dun. Leave her alone. Dun, 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 dun." But you know, the wooden spoon was mostly for show. She would swing it at me. I would pretend to be hit. I'd fall to the ground, and I'd give a crying performance that would make Meryl Streep envious. But the wooden spoon, it could fall out of your hand. It was mostly for show. If my mother was really pissed off at me, she had a special weapon. It was the hairbrush. Oh, the hairbrush. And this wasn't just some ordinary hairbrush. I was with my mother one time when she went to buy one. And I'm standing there looking at her, and it was like watching a golfer buy a $500 driver. She's there, you know, looking at the balance, just seeing how it moves, what the weight is like, you know, twirling it around, you know, how... Some of the mothers, they drill holes in it in order to reduce drag and get better velocity when they're hitting them. This particular one is the very popular titanium model. Now the problem with the brush is it's small, so you gotta get in close. And if I was like one of those kids on Leave It to Beaver, you know, "Come over here, Beav, go over my lap," you know, and they give him the spanking. No. If you wanted to beat me, you had to catch me. And I had moves. I could move around, you know, and I would duck, and I was like Muhammad Ali. I could do the Ali shuffle, and my mother would be chasing me. So what she would have to do is use her version of a Scud missile. She'd throw the thing at me, and I'd fall down, and she'd start beating me, and I would block it like a black belt in karate. And I tried to get her in trouble for that, because at one of my many disciplinary meetings at school with the principal, my mother came, and the principal saw the black and blue marks on my arm. And she, you know, asked me what that was. And I said, "Oh, this is where my mother beats me with a brush. And look, I've got splinters from the wooden spoon." And Mrs. Bugelberger looks at her and says, "Mrs. Brunoforte, you beat Paul with a brush? You beat him with a wooden spoon?" And I thought, yes, you know, there was no CPS back then. So I thought, yes, I got her in trouble. Mrs. Bugelberger reaches behind her desk and says, "You should use this. It gets over his arm, and because it's rubber, it doesn't leave any marks." You see, back then, any adult was allowed to beat you, especially teachers. Look right here. You can see the numbers 10, 11, and 12, where the teachers used to beat me with a ruler. They'd smash my hands. But you know, mothers, they were ironing and cleaning, and they had all of these things to do. So they would run out of time to beat me, so they would have to delegate the beatings. And in the 1960s, the 6 most feared words in the English language was not, "the Russians have the atomic bomb." No, that wasn't it. It was, "wait till your father gets home." Fathers, they had the worst weapon of all because they had the belts. And my father wouldn't just beat me, he was very demonstrative. So he'd swing it around like a lash LaRue. And then he'd fold it like a nunchuck. He'd get this little overbite, and he'd tell me what he's going to do. "I'm going to beat your little ass, and you're not going to be able to sit down for a week." Fortunately, he only had to do that 2 or 3 times. Because, like they train baby elephants, the memory of the beating was so deep in my psyche, so that when I screwed up, all my father had to do was say, "Belt, and the whole beating came back. But you know, I'm so glad today we're so much wiser. We don't beat our kids. Debbie and I raised 3 children. They're right here. I didn't beat them because we knew better. When my kids screwed up, I sent them to their room where they had their TV, a computer, a telephone, a little basketball hoop, and a small refrigerator in case they got a little hungry in the middle of the night. Things were a lot different when I was young. But if I was president today, what I would do is I'd gather up all the moms with their WMDs and I'd send them to Russia to beat Putin's ass. Mr. MC.
Give it up for Paul Brunoforte! Woo!